It started with a username, a digital alias that meant nothing to the casual observer, yet screamed volumes to those who knew where to look. Rashid McFadden believed he operated in the shadows, convinced he was invisible, careful with every move, every word, every file he uploaded. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that someone else was watching. Not just any someone, but the FBI. For months, they had been tracing his digital footprint, cataloging every transaction, every encrypted message. He had taken every precaution, every safeguard, but it wasn't enough. The trap was already set. And when the moment came, there was no escape. Welcome to Exposed Truth, B1V. I thank you, my viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime stories update. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. To understand how it all unraveled, we need to go back. Not to the moment of his arrest, not to the moment the FBI made their move, but to the beginning. To the very first misstep. The one that sealed his fate before he even knew he was a target. He thought he was just another faceless entity in a sea of anonymity. He believed the layers of encryption would protect him. But in reality, he had been leaving breadcrumbs all along. A single misplaced IP ping. A poorly masked transaction. A slip in language that, to a trained analyst, stood out like a flashing red light. The operation had been in motion long before he realized. And by the time he did, it was already too late. Who was Rashid Lamont McFadden? At 29 years old, he lived in Baltimore, Maryland. On the surface, he seemed like just another ordinary man in the city. But behind closed doors, he was leading a double life, one that would soon unravel. McFadden wasn't just a consumer of illicit material. He was a distributor. He was connected to a dark network, engaging in some of the worst crimes imaginable. And, according to him, he wasn't just downloading these materials, he was creating them. He believed the digital world provided a shield, a cloak of invisibility. But as we'll see, he was wrong. For years, McFadden existed in two realities. In one, he was a regular man, blending into society without attracting much attention. In the other, he was deeply immersed in an underground world where anonymity was currency, and secrecy was everything. But secrecy, as he would learn, is never absolute. Law enforcement wasn't just watching. They were listening, tracking, waiting. And when they finally made their move, it was swift, calculated, and devastating. The conversation escalated quickly. McFadden, eager and unsuspecting, took the bait without hesitation. He responded almost instantly, his messages disturbingly eager. He wanted details. He wanted proof. He wanted access. The agent, maintaining his cover, played the role flawlessly. He kept the conversation moving, feeding McFadden just enough to keep him engaged. And then, he made a critical mistake. McFadden sent a message containing a location, his location. He suggested meeting in person. The agent agreed. A meeting place was set. From that moment, every keystroke had been logged. Every message he sent was being recorded. Every word he typed was building the case against him. As the conversation unfolded, a team of FBI agents monitored in real time. Within minutes, an emergency warrant was in motion. A surveillance team was dispatched to confirm McFadden's whereabouts. The agent sent a single message that would seal his fate. "How soon can you get here?" McFadden responded within seconds. He was ready. He was eager. And he was walking straight into a trap. The FBI team was already in place. Agents were stationed nearby, watching, waiting. The moment he arrived, the operation moved into its final phase. In a matter of seconds, he was surrounded. Guns were drawn. Commands were shouted. "FBI! Hands where we can see them!" McFadden froze. Agents forced him to the ground, cuffing his hands behind his back. His phone was seized, his apartment was already being searched, and the evidence against him was overwhelming. And for the first time, McFadden realized the truth. He had walked straight into his own downfall. McFadden sat in his cell, unaware of what was happening outside. He thought he was buying time, that without his passcode, the FBI's investigation would stall. But he was wrong. Investigators had been monitoring his activities in real time. They didn't need access to his phone to see what he had been sending. They already had the messages, the files, the videos, each one painstakingly logged and preserved as evidence. Still, there was one more question that needed answering. Was McFadden acting alone? Or was he part of something larger? While he sat in his cell, refusing to cooperate, forensic teams got to work. The search warrant allowed them to seize not only his phone but also his computers, hard drives, and cloud accounts. Agents combed through every device, decrypting, extracting, and cross-referencing data. And then they found it. Buried within a hidden folder on one of his external drives was a list, names, usernames, and contact details. Some were aliases. Some were real. All of them were connected to something bigger. A network. For the FBI, this changed everything. They had gone in expecting to take down one predator. But now, they had the blueprint of an entire operation. They moved fast. Within hours, subpoenas were issued. Warrants were prepared. The list of names was divided among different law enforcement agencies across the country. McFadden had unknowingly given them something much bigger than just his own confession. He had given them an open door into an underground world that had thrived in the shadows for far too long. At exactly 6:45 a.m. on February 22nd, coordinated raids began. Across multiple states, doors were kicked in, computers were seized, and arrests were made. One by one, the pieces of the network collapsed. And McFadden, by the time he realized what was happening, it was already too late. The game was over. The FBI's search didn't end there. Agents meticulously combed through every folder, every subfolder, every hidden directory within McFadden's cloud storage. What they found painted a picture far darker than they had initially imagined. The sheer volume of material was staggering. Thousands of files, meticulously categorized, spanning years. The timestamps revealed an unsettling truth. McFadden had been active for far longer than anyone had suspected. Each file was a piece of evidence, a window into a world of depravity that he had helped sustain. Investigators traced metadata, analyzing the origins of each upload. Some had been sourced from other offenders, exchanged in secret forums under encrypted usernames. But others, they had been recorded on devices linked directly to McFadden himself. The implications were horrifying. Then, they found something else. Hidden among the countless images and videos, buried deep within an encrypted folder, was a list. Names. It was a network. A meticulously kept record of the people McFadden had interacted with, traded with, possibly even blackmailed. With this discovery, the case against McFadden evolved. It was no longer just about possession or distribution. It was about something much larger. By the time prosecutors prepared their case, McFadden wasn't just facing charges. He was facing the full force of federal law enforcement. The evidence against him was overwhelming, his role undeniable. When the time came for his first court appearance, there was no bargaining, no negotiations, no deals, because there was no escaping what he had done. McFadden sat motionless as Judge Nichols read his fate. A courtroom filled with silence, save for the steady rhythm of the judge's voice, delivering a sentence that would redefine the rest of his life. 114 months in federal prison. 15 years of supervised release. A term that, in practical reality, meant McFadden would never truly be free again. Even before the gavel struck, marking the end of this chapter, the reality of his new existence had already begun to settle in. Prison. Federal prison is unlike state facilities. The walls don't just hold inmates, they hold reputations. And in the hierarchy of criminals, offenders like McFadden sit at the very bottom. The Bureau of Prisons would decide where he would serve his time, but no matter the location, his label would follow him. He would spend his days in confinement, stripped of control, navigating an environment where trust is a liability and isolation is often the only protection. The years ahead would be a slow, punishing reminder that the power he once wielded, anonymity, secrecy, control, was gone. But his story wasn't over. Back in Baltimore County, another courtroom awaited him. Additional charges still loomed. And even if he were to serve every second of his federal sentence, the moment he stepped out of that prison, he would not be free. A lifetime of scrutiny. 15 years of supervised release meant restrictions that would shape every moment of his existence. No unsupervised internet access. No contact with minors. No movement without permission. And then, there was the registry. McFadden's name, face, and crimes would be accessible to the public for the rest of his life. The same internet he once used as a tool of exploitation would now be his most permanent prison. Employment, housing, relationships. Every aspect of his future would be dictated by a past he could never escape. McFadden was just one of hundreds of criminals caught through Project Safe Childhood. Since its launch, this initiative has helped law enforcement locate and prosecute thousands of offenders, but the fight is far from over. The internet provides a new battlefield, where predators believe they can hide. But cases like this one prove that law enforcement is watching, and that no one is truly anonymous. The FBI encourages anyone who suspects child exploitation to report it immediately. If there's one lesson to take from this case, it's that these crimes don't go unnoticed. And sooner or later, justice will catch up. But beyond the arrests and convictions, there's another, more sobering reality. For every perpetrator taken off the streets, there are countless more lurking in the shadows. They move through encrypted chat rooms, hidden forums, and corners of the web most people never see. They exploit loopholes in technology, using sophisticated methods to cover their tracks. And yet, time and time again, they make mistakes. Mistakes that leave behind digital breadcrumbs, mistakes that law enforcement is trained to find. Forensic analysts pore over hard drives, piecing together deleted files, reconstructing conversations, and tracking IP addresses across continents. Undercover agents infiltrate these spaces, gaining the trust of criminals who have no idea they're speaking to law enforcement. The justice system is far from perfect. Investigations take time. Evidence must be airtight. And sometimes, cases slip through the cracks. But for those who think they can evade the law indefinitely, there is one universal truth. They can run, they can hide, but they can't escape forever. Because behind every case file, every anonymous tip, every painstaking forensic analysis, there's someone watching. A detective, a federal agent, a digital forensics expert, someone committed to making sure that justice is served. And when the moment comes, when the doors are kicked in, when the handcuffs snap shut, when the verdict is read, it serves as a warning to the next predator who thinks they're untouchable. Because in the end, there are only two paths: stop or be caught. Rashid McFadden thought he was safe. He thought he could share his crimes with others without consequences. But he was wrong. Now, he will spend nearly a decade in prison. And even after that, he will never be free from the consequences of his actions. What do you think about this case? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more about cases like this, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the internet is full of dark stories, and we're just getting started.